Welcome to the Tactical Business Podcast. I am your host, Wade Skalsky, and today we are talking with Jim Curcuruto of the Outdoor Stewards of Conservation Foundation. I gave myself a challenge today, Jim. I wanted to really make it complicated for my intro. How are you doing today, sir?
Doing great. Yeah, thank you for that, and good job on the names.
Good. Yeah, no, I have a hard one. My last name is kind of hard to say, so I try to pay attention and get it right if I can. Before we're going to begin the podcast, people can find you with your website and end it. And your podcast is outdoorstewards.org. I'm really excited to talk to you today. Why don't we kind of do a little bit of kind of how you got to where you are, a little backstory, and just the quick version of what Outdoor Stewards does.
All right. Yeah, no problem at all. I grew up outdoors, and somewhat, I guess, mid-state New York, not upstate, not downstate, and Putnam County. Did a lot of hunting, fishing, and enjoyed the outdoors more than the indoors. And got fortunate to have a position with the National Shooting Sports Foundation, which is a trade association for the outdoor industry, for 11 years. Did a lot of market research for those folks, did a lot of work on participation, trying to grow the next generation of people that go outdoors. And then took that, and about 3 years ago started Outdoor Stewards of Conservation Foundation, which is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. And our mission is to work with all aspects of the outdoor industry, those manufacturers and retailers, media, as well as state agencies and other NGOs, and use research-based communication and engagement programs to help recruit that next generation of folks. We call them HATs: hunters, anglers, trappers, and shooters. That's our primary consumer base. There's 60 million of them out there, but a lot of them are aging out. So we're trying to help recruit that next generation and also promote the positive contributions of gun owners and those hats out there, because we don't get to tell the good things, good side of the story, as much as sometimes the bad things about gun owners are portrayed in the media.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think conservation and hunting is a common ground that is a little more accessible to people. And so you talk a little bit about your research foundation, your research in the analytics. Walk me through a little bit about how that works and how you guys are kind of targeting your audience.
Sure. Yeah. So again, I did a ton of research, right? $5 million worth of research over the past decade with my previous job, and now with Outdoor Stewards. Just in the past year or so, we've conducted 3 or 4 research projects and provide the information to free for everybody out there. It helps, grow the market with the more knowledge that you have out there. On one side, we're looking at participation. We know that there's a lot of people that participate. Those hats look like you and I, 50-year-old white guys, right, that go outdoors. We've got that market covered, but we also know through the research there's millions of folks that want to get started in the outdoors that don't necessarily look like us. And through research, we know that they need 2 things: information on how to get started, and more than anything else, an invitation. So we've got, some research that works with, we work with Native American tribes to understand their current participation and their potential to increase participation in outdoor activities. And again, they say, we're waiting just to be invited. We need that information. So there's a huge market of folks that are on the fence that are getting ready to get into the field. So we have built a program at Outdoor Stewards called Come With, off of that research. What do you do when you're going somewhere and you want somebody to say, you want to say, hey, come with me when I go fishing, come with me when I go to the range. So we're trying to instill that into the 60 million active hats. Say, hey, bring somebody with you, ask somebody to come with you. Some of the other research, more business related, we had conducted a study on hunting with AR platform modern sporting rifle, right? So we know, right, there's a lot of stories about the AR platform in the news, but a lot of people, like 40% of hunters, have used AR platform, and a bunch more are going to be using AR platform rifles to go hunting with. They're great, versatile rifles, different calibers, lightweight, accurate, reliable, and they're being used for anything from squirrels to hogs and deer. So, but you can't be just guessing that. We need to put some facts behind that so the outdoor industry can use that data. We also keep pulse of the general population's attitudes toward hunting, fishing, trapping, and shooting. Unfortunately, we learned in our latest study of 2023 that that middle, the general population in the middle, not the 15% on either side, but we've lost support of them, about 4% of them, which equates to about 10 million people, no longer support, they may not hunt, fish, trap, or shoot, but in the past they said, yeah, it's fine, Wade, if you do that. Now some of them are saying, I don't do it, but I don't think Wade should do it either. So we've got to realize that that's a problem, right? We're losing the communication battle, and then try to win those people back through, basically what NRA has called the cultural acceptance of hunting, right? So we need to shine a light on the positive contributions that outdoor folks have, and there's a ton of it, right? We fund conservation, no doubt about that. We clean up nature. We're not litter bugs. We like conservation, and we are, we actually help feed the hungry, solve the hunger crisis in America. Hunters donate 60 million meals a year through, venison donations and stuff like that. We got to tell those stories.
I did not know that fact. 60 million meals a year through donations.
Correct. Yeah.
That's a huge number. I did not know that. Is there a geographic areas of the country where that's more prevalent, or is that kind of basically just across the country?
It's across the country, but obviously there's where deer are prevalent. The states with high densities of deer and very liberal um, um, harvest numbers. Those are the numbers where those are the states where there's more harvest data. The NRA, I worked with them just this past year, and they started in November of 2023. They came up with National Game Meat Donation Month. Again, it's a messaging campaign. They studied current hunters and identified what percent of them donate. Then they went out to the top 50 organizations, those Hunters for the Hungry, Hunters Feeding America type of organizations, and realized they're getting a lot of donations, but it's not meeting the demand of the food banks, right? The food banks always need more protein, and the food banks will tell you the number one source of protein for the hunger crisis in America is meat, game meat donations. So got to tell that story. Who doesn't like solving hunger, right?
Yeah, I mean that's for me too, as someone who grew up hunting and in North Dakota and just obviously very pro gun. I've never heard that stat anywhere, and so I was like, what? I know obviously
Right.
that people do donate and that hunters donate, but that is a gigantic number.
Right. It's a great story, and just got to tell it.
Yeah, and you touched on it too. I think I was just having this conversation with our co-host John about, he's an avid, he's into firearms and all that, but there's this barrier to entry even for him
Right.
into hunting itself, right? So for example, if I shoot a deer, how do I dress the deer? Like
Right.
where do I learn to do that? So if you don't learn that generationally, there is sort of a bigger barrier to entry than other types of sports because of
Right.
it takes a lot of knowledge to be able to do that.
Right. And you nailed it on the head. I mean, hunting, um, you need somebody to teach you, right? I mean, for the most part, it's most people get involved through their family, but there's this adult onset hunting. A lot of adults now, want to find locally sourced food or very interested in, non-GMO, protein that they don't have to get from the grocery store and hear the horror stories about, how that's processed. So again, we've got a lot of active hunters that are now becoming mentors. And the feeling you get as a mentor, teaching somebody how to catch a fish, teaching somebody how to shoot a gun, or teaching somebody how to hunt. I tell you what, man, I've been doing that's been my mission here for the last couple of years. It is a million times more satisfying for me to take somebody out and teach them how to hunt and show them how to gut a deer and all that stuff than for me doing it for the umpteenth time, right? So we got to get that message out to the active hats out there. Bring somebody with you. You're going to be glad you did, because the feeling and the reaction is the same. When they catch their first fish, they turn around and smile like, "What a fish!"
Mm-hmm.
When they hit that bullseye or hit that steel, I hit the I hit the bullseye. It's a great feeling as a mentor. So we want to use that come with program and get the message out there to bring somebody with you.
Well, and also too, I think if you're going to really get good at something, teach it, right? And
Right,
so as if you're going to mentor someone to it, it's going to just make you better as a hunter yourself, in
right,
terms of what you're doing. And also, I think the second thing is from the sort of the communication battle is most communities think hunters are some of these trophy game, big game hunters they see on social media, right? Where they see a picture of someone who just killed a leopard in wherever,
Right.
or a mountain lion, or and I think, I don't have any necessary challenge with that. I think I might make trophy hunters mad, but I think the winning, where you said to win the communication battles, to say no, 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 that is a very, very tiny minority of population of hunters. That's not what hunting is about. Are you experiencing a lot of that in terms of sort of your research, and that's kind of the perception that people have?
Yeah, it is. And again, we lost the community. We were losing the communication battle, right? Cecil the Lion. You never even heard of trophy hunting until Cecil the Lion. Peters did HHSU's done a great job, embellishing on every hunter is out there, you know, killing a lion and just taking its mane for a trophy. I mean, there was no such thing as trophy hunting. It's just, words matter. They did a good job hijacking that terminology. Everything for hunters, when you harvest your first doe, I mean, that's a trophy, right? When my kid harvested his first, little 4 point buck, that's a trophy, man. I'm not ashamed to say that those are trophies, but the terminology, right, has been hijacked from us, from the hats by the antis, and kudos to them. They're doing a great job communicating, misinformation about hunters. So it's our turn to say we're not as bad as what some folks say.
Well, and I think too is if you look at it as a generational story, right? Like you said, like your son will always remember going
Right.
hunting with his dad, right? And that is something that is, and I don't know what the history in your family is, but either you're continuing a tradition that started way back when, or you're starting a tradition that you're responsible for in your family. And that is a very powerful American story.
Right. Yeah, and again, yeah, your kids are great. That's kind of your responsibility as a parent, right? If you're an active outdoors person, you want to teach your family how to do it. But bring a neighbor, bring a coworker, bring the folks that sit next to you in the pew at church that they have expressed an interest or something like that. I mean, my son's friend, his dad, came over to my basement. Oh, you're a hunter. And I said, yeah, yeah, you interested? And I've been teaching him. We've been unsuccessful, but we've been out deer hunting, turkey hunting and waterfowl hunting. He has a great time learning, and and he's now out there doing it himself with his father-in-law and stuff like that. But again, I get a great feeling, teaching Ed how to learn a new skill set and stuff like that, and following the saga until he get harvests his
Yeah.
first animal, right?
Well, and that's something I think that's important for people to understand about hunting and conservation, is that it's not the actual harvesting of the animal is almost 5% of the whole
Right.
experience. I mean, so when you're going out and you have an unsuccessful hunt, it teaches you how to deal with adversity. When you're going out and you have an unsuccessful hunt, it teaches you how to, persevere and keep going. And then it creates a history, and it makes it that much better for the family. And that's on a real micro level. I mean, on a macro level, if we kind of go high, what is your research telling you about the public's knowledge about the need for conservation, that some of these animals must be harvested for the environment itself, right? Like we can't have too many deer, we can't have too many mountain lions. Like,
Right.
what is your information telling you on their sort of overall knowledge of that?
Right. Again, state fish and wildlife agencies are the folks that get their hands dirty doing all the groundwork. They're filled with these great biologists, dedicated staff that want to manage healthy wildlife populations. Now they're funded by hunters, anglers, trappers, and shooters, which we can get into a little bit. But they know for sure that you need hunters. Once humans are in the equation, they've got to be in the equation. You can't just let nature take care of itself, right? You've got if you don't manage the population of white-tailed deer, they're going to overpopulate. They're going to wipe out a food source. They're going to hurt that habitat for other species. And then sooner or later, you have a hard winter, and you're going to, have disease. You're going to have starvation on a mass scale. And that's been proven. Again, those biologists are great at talking to animals. Those state agencies are now starting to do a better job talking to people, right? So they've got to communicate. We need a deer season for these reasons here. We need to manage these. We need to have trappers, right? And trappers play a huge role in managing, the nest raiders, right? Those raccoons and those possums and stuff that wipe out, deer. Turkey and not deer, turkey and waterfowl populations, right? So if you have way too many predators, they're going to wipe out, the ducks and stuff like that. So people I like ducks. So, well, hey, if you like ducks, right, we have to manage that population correctly. So we've got all the data. We just got to communicate it.
Yeah, and I don't think people really understand how much funding comes from private hunters. My first shotgun was a Ducks Unlimited shotgun, right? And I don't even know how much money Ducks Unlimited has
Right.
donated since, and that was 40 years ago. You know what I mean? So it's like it's I think people, like you said, the communication battle is getting them to understand that it's a big integrated system, you know. What do you see sort of the challenges of the next 5 years for you guys? Like, what do you see is going to happen in terms of, do you have any kind of, if you were to look in your crystal ball, like, what do you think of the trends? Where are the trends going right now?
Well, like I said, the American attitudes, we know we lost about 10 million people in the middle. We actually are going to do a study starting in February here, just in a couple of weeks, to better determine, reach out to those folks. It's a low incident rate, but we'll find those folks that once said it was okay for Wade to go target shooting and now say no. So we need to identify the reason why and then identify some messages that'll win them back, right? So that cultural acceptance of hunting is huge. And it has to be in conjunction with what we call R3. The R3 movement is recruit new hunters, anglers, target shooters, retain the ones we have, and reactivate lapsed participants, right? So those are the things that Outdoor Stewards is focusing on right now because, right, of that funding model, right? If you do not have people that participate in hunting, fishing, trapping, and shooting, you're going to lose $3.6 billion a year to conservation, right? So those 60 million active hats right now are paying $10 million a day, $3.6 billion a year through purchasing excise tax products like firearms, ammunition, bows, arrows, rods, reels, and all those fishing lures, coupled with the purchases of hunting and fishing licenses, coupled with those donations from the Ducks Unlimited and the National Wild Turkey Federation. There's not even a group that comes close to funding conservation the way that hats do. And without them, the state wildlife agencies, that's 70% of their budget. Imagine wiping out 70% of, North Dakota DNR's budget. They're not going to be able to manage the populations. They're not going to be able to manage habitat and, wildlife as we know it, and the clean water and the clean air that comes along with managing those habitats. It's not going to be a pretty picture. So that's going to be our focus over the next 5 years.
Do you find that there's, with the sort of the attitudes, that they're in alignment with sort of the 2A attitudes? So are they separate? Because for what we're seeing, or at least what I'm seeing, is that gun ownership is really increasing. The first time that in the history, you have more people, more houses with guns than without guns in the country, right? So I think gun ownership are we seeing that trend? It's like they're kind of going like this. Does that make sense? Like, it's okay to own gun for self-defense, but we're going to be against hunting, or are they kind of both going in the same directions from your research?
Right. Yeah. So the vast majority of gun owners, and I did a study when I was with NSSF, of firearm retailers, your audience here too, that they're the front lines. They know who they're selling to. They can tell a first-time gun buyer from somebody that's been back for their third or fourth, fifth, 10th, 20th gun, right? So I think there was 10 million first-time gun buyers during the 2 years of the pandemic. Now, not all those people are participants right now. They bought, for the most part, semi-automatic handguns for personal protection. They're not involved in hunting. Now, when you become a gun owner and for the first time and you realize, well, it's not as bad as what I heard on the media, right? These things aren't, just going off for no reason and, shooting, through walls and all that sort of stuff. So again, we need to, do a better job recruiting them into participation, whether that's target shooting first, and then the retailers will inform them of, hey, there's other guns out there that you can use for other activities like hunting. So we've got a silver platter with 10 million people on it that are new gun owners. Unfortunately, they're not really, most of them haven't become active participants. So the messaging that we get to these folks is, hey, you bought that firearm for personal protection. You need to practice with it. You need to be able to be proficient with it, because if you, God forbid, have to use it for personal protection and you're not proficient with it, you're probably going to lose that battle, right? So, and that's the opposite reason why you bought that firearm. And there's a lot of fun uses for firearms that will help you remain proficient. Tons of different shooting leagues out there, all different disciplines, great people, great instructors. So get out there. That's where the retailers now are the front lines. They're telling these people when they buy their first gun, hey, make sure you practice with it. You may want to join this league or come to this event. And it's beneficial for retailers to do that because the research shows you have a first-time gun buyer versus a first-time gun buyer with training, and that first-time gun buyer with training is going to spend 40% more at their store. So yeah, we're finally getting there. And again, this is kind of all relatively new within the last 5 years. So we've got some potential to do better communications, not just on conservation, but on participation as well through the.
Well, and I think there's two tracks, right? There's not to be two tracks, but people sometimes will go into the sort of the Gucci gun gear, and they'll go into the like the tactical training, really get serious with that. Whereas, they need to understand is that if you go hunting, that is a form of tactical training. You need
Oh
situational
yeah.
awareness, you need situational awareness. Your adrenaline is pumping, so you need to know, okay, my fine motor skills are going. I got to be on target, right? And so it actually can make you safer, family safer for self-defense by being a proficient hunter.
Right. Oh yeah. And plus, right? When you pull that trigger, you can't take that gun back. You kill a squirrel, that squirrel ain't coming back, right? So, something, it's a mindset as well. So again, if you're going to use a gun for self-defense, you got to be 100% sure that you're
Right.
in the right? And because you can't, once you pull that trigger, it doesn't come back. So, yeah. And, I think one of the things you were alluding to, right? You've got gun owners that might have, tactical versus, hunters and stuff like that. They're just like everything else. There's a little bit of infighting among, archery people. Like, I don't like crossbows, versus I'm a traditional guy, and hunters, tactical guys versus those Elmer Fuds and stuff like that. And that drives me crazy. It's like, we got enough enemies, man. We got to
Hmm.
make our own bed and stick with it. And just because, you might be, a tactical guy, do not talk bad about, hunters, and vice versa. Hunters, don't worry about, we're on the same page in the big picture. We got enough folks coming after us that let's try to get along in our own bed.
Yeah, well, and it's one big tent, right? And so it's this, we can understand that's one big community because sometimes I read somewhere once where the solution to the thorniest problems that you're having is in the opposite pole sometimes, right? So if you're a tactical person and there's something that you're
But
struggling with, the solution to that might be in hunting. If you're a hunting person and there's something you're struggling with, the solution might that be more tactical, right? And so there's a lot that the two communities can learn from each other. And there's more overlap than just guns,
but
and I think you talked a lot about it too with the mindset. I mean, that's so important is that there is a big psychological barrier for people to overcome every step of the way with guns, right? So it's like, okay, I'm going to buy a gun. I'm going to train with a gun. I'm going to hunt with so it's a journey. And I think the community aspect of it, are you finding that the community aspect of it makes it easier for people to go on that mental journey versus trying to do it themselves?
oh yeah, and I think we're building a community too, right? We've got better communications with groups like Sportsman's Alliance and howl.org that are now kind of getting us, informing us of what's going on, and it can't be localized, right? Because all right, I'm in Connecticut. I'm not, they're not mountain lions here, but mountain lion hunters in Iowa or whatever are getting attacked. And these organizations like Sportsman's Alliance and howl.org are sending out notifications to me, say, hey, you could write a letter, even though you don't live or out there, write a letter to these congressmen or these folks that are writing that bill to say you oppose that bill if you do, right? So we've got to stick together as a community, like you're saying, because everybody talks about, hunters is declining and maybe 15 million hunters on an annual basis. 21 million people consider themselves hunters overall because, they don't hunt every year, but they still, maybe I go hunting once out of 3 years, but they're still a hunter, right? So, 20 million is a pretty solid number. Plus you add in the 50 million target shooters and the anglers and the trappers. Collectively, we are a big group. And if we can support each other, right? So the fishing industry is getting attacked now, right? Because they're trying to slow down all boats on the eastern shore because of their, running over right whales, or so the media says, right? So they're trying
Mm-hmm.
to cut the speed limits for all boats out there, and that includes fishing charters. So, when you book a fishing charter and you normally take a 2.5 hour ride to the fishing grounds, Well, now that's a 6 hour ride, right? Now, are you going to do that if you're, your anglers are going to, I'm not going to do that now. I got a 6 hour ride back and forth or something like that. So those type of things, and we've got to band together and support each other.
Well, and I think when the culture was more ingrained in sort of the American history and the ethos, that people didn't feel the need to have to kind of be evangelists for it because that's what the culture was. But
Right,
now is that
sure.
it's now is that we're a minority in the culture. We're not necessarily a minority in the culture. Maybe collectively we're a minority, right? In terms of how the culture views it. Because when I was a kid, you could walk into a hardware store and purchase a shotgun, like no
Right.
problem, right?
Yeah.
You know what I
Okay.
mean? Like, I mean, they would probably let me do it when I was 14, 15 years old back then, So I never did it, but I'm, for sure my dad's generation, right? And
Right.
so, that progression is not going to stop unless people come together and understand that, okay, I have a responsibility because I enjoy this, I enjoy hunting. I have a responsibility to do what I can, even if it's just a little bit to bring someone along or whatever to help
Right.
grow it.
Yeah, we've got, like I said, we got some cool programs there. The Come With program. We've got a program at Outdoor Stewards Conservation called Fill a Bag While Filling Your Tag, and we distribute like biodegradable bags to people that go outdoors hunting and fishing. And when they come across some trash, they just stop and take that out of the woods and waters with them, which research shows about 80% of them have taken other people's trash out of the woods and waters. But we need to, show those stories. So we ask people to post photos on their Instagram or Facebook about, hey, here's my trophy trash of the day. I didn't catch a trout or didn't see any turkeys, but came across this old Mylar balloon and I took it out of the woods. So tell those positive stories. Another one that we have a video series called Connecting with Conservation, and we just have 7 or 8 videos. We just started a YouTube channel when we went to manufacturers and to state wildlife agencies. So we went up to Savage Arms in Massachusetts and brought along Massachusetts DNR folks, took a tour of the facility. Some Savage Arms, writes those checks, those excise tax checks that get filtered down to Mass DNR, who does all that good work. But both of them know they can't exist without that third part, right? The hunters, anglers, trappers, and shooters. So we're informing them that they are the primary funders of conservation, all about, doing better communication wise things. So we feel like we're covering a lot of those issues with the programs that we built here.
Well, and I definitely think social media is going to be the new battleground
Yeah.
because it's in the community is a little bit behind on that, right? And because you just talked about PETA, like PETA's been doing,
Right.
they've been very good with the advertising and the images and I remember they used to do magazine articles that do pictures that are very striking pictures that you would remember, right? So
Right. Right.
so they know how to kind of get that headspace. Are you seeing movement on social media, or are you getting you seeing a lot of resistance on social media? I mean, kind of where is social media at with regards to an accurate reflection of the culture?
Yeah, you know what? Well, imaging, right, is
Hmm.
something that we talked about. You had mentioned it earlier about, the kind of the grip and grin photos, and I think they've evolved substantially. I think, hunters have done a good job of putting better imaging out there on social media rather than the dried up fish on the tailgate or the worn out hunter with a, deer with his bloody tongue hanging out. They're doing a great job now putting better photos out there, and that helps for sure because we know for a fact that some of those anti-gun organizations were grabbing those crappy photos and sensationalizing them and lumping us all in like look at these idiots out there, and it was true. Like there was some horrible photos out there, so that's good. And obviously, social media is not going to go away. Outdoor Stewards has on Instagram, we're at outdoorstewards.org. And we're trying to, again, show the positive contributions of outdoorsmen with the trophy trash photos that people send in, the story about how conservation is funded, the meat donations, the bringing somebody new with you. So, yeah, take advantage of it. We got to take advantage of it for sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and the great thing about sort of the approach that you're talking about is that it's a multi-pronged approach, right? So
Mm.
it's you've got sort of an evangelical approach, which is bring a friend. You've got the conservation, publicity with the trash, like the trophy trash, right? And then also as well as just kind of going from the the top all the way down to the bottom. So it's just really exciting to hear about what you guys are doing. Run through where people can find you. And
Sure.
again, the website, all of your social media, I want to make sure people have access to you. How can they contact you?
I appreciate that. Yeah, so it's outdoorstewards.org is the website. Got all our programs and information, all that free research is there as well. Instagram is our primary social media, and that's at Outdoor Stewards. And then we just started a YouTube channel. We've got about 20 videos on there about showcasing diversity in hunting, and then those connecting with conservation videos. So when you get to YouTube, just type in Outdoor Stewards, a Conservation Foundation, and you'll find our channel. So yeah, appreciate it. A lot of good things, a lot of challenges, but we're ready for them. We're having a good time doing it too.
Well, I definitely learned a lot from talking to you today, and it's actually starting to get me fired up to think about, I probably need to do a little bit better job with what I'm doing in terms of doing a better job communicating to the people around me about the benefits of hunting and
Right.
how, and those things. So I'll definitely be taking advantage and checking out what you guys are doing. And Jim, thank you so much for coming on today.
All right, it was great. Thank you, Wade.